Hello, Forcible community. I'm Ryan Lilly, and I'm here today with a bit of a deck list profile. This is a list that it features a ruler that I've always been pretty passionate about. I very much love this ruler. However, she's not always been too good. So I've been staring at support for quite a while now, especially the last several sets since Saga Cluster. And I think she's finally reached a point in which she might be playable. But that isn't for me to decide. In fact, if it's up to my buddy Toby, it's quite the opposite. Uh, he's just a little biased. But uh, yeah, so if you're ready for an absolute train wreck of a video and you're interested at all in what I have to say about an old school ruler, keep watching. And thank you for tuning in. So what I have for you here today is a list that I have dubbed Simply Stunning. And it of course is featuring Valentina, the Princess of Love. She's a judgment for a cost of blue, and that's largely irrelevant. Of course, we've got the J ruler. She ramps a stone. She doesn't take any damage during your turn. She can steal a guy. It's all right. Look at those stats. Those abysmal stats. 5, 5. 2 drops cost less than that now. Or 2 drops, I should say, have better stats than that now. Some 1 drops. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. We're here for this ability. You may put a water resonator with total cost 2 or less from your hand into the field. That is not once per turn. That is an activate ability, so it can happen at any point as interaction or on your opponent's turn, etc., etc. It's just essentially cheating the fact that you're playing a resonator because you are not casting it, you are putting it into the field via an ability. And so she's got a lot of really, really nice tools to use nowadays that make it just a nightmare for your opponent to play the game. And that's where this deck is going to go. So let's get started. We're running 4 copies of the Academy Guard of Lycion. It's a 4/4 with quick cast for a singular blue. And each player can only play 1 resonator spell per turn, and each player can only play 1 chance spell per turn. That's already a nightmare, but here's the best part. Valentina doesn't care, because even with an Academy Guard up, you can still put as many resonators into the field as you wish, provided you can afford to pay 2 for them. Uh, and your opponent, they have to sit there and deal with it until they can remove the Academy Guard. You're never going to attack with this guy, you're never going to block with this guy. You're just going to let him sit there and cause your opponent problems. And the best part is he is only 1 cost and he is quick cast, so you can play him on the coin on your opponent's first turn if they decide to try and pop off at the beginning of the game. Yeah, so 4 copies of this guy because he is good, he's dirtily, and I like to watch people suffer. Next, we have 3 copies of the Space-Time Mage of Maat. She's a 7/7 for 2 mana. That's already really good. And she makes your opponent pay 1 more to play spells during your turn. Okay, good. There's a tax. There's a tax. And when she enters the field without being played from the hand, you get to draw 2 cards. And I want to emphasize that means when you pay her cost and put her into the field, that is playing her. When you pay 2 with Valentina and put her into the field, she is not being played from the hand. She is being put into the field from the hand. So she does draw you 2 for the low cost of 2 mana. Next, we have 3 copies of the Mechanical Engineer of Ma'at. This is a 2-drop, 1 blue for a 6/6. I have included this in the list mainly because if you haven't already signed up for the Ruler School Force of Will Festival that's happening on November 5th and 6th in Kalamazoo, Michigan, I highly recommend you do it. The reason for this card being here is actually because that tournament is operating under a custom ban list, meaning no Warhorse and no Origin of the Seven Lands. And this chick right here, she makes up for the fact that you can't play Origins. She says, enter, choose one. You either reveal a machine you own from outside the game and keep it revealed until the end of the game, or you can put a machine you own revealed from outside the game into your hand. You're more often than not just going to do the first part. There may be some applications in which you'll add 1 card. from your sideboard to your hand, but I sincerely doubt it. So, 3 copies of her. We'll come back to her though. Next, we have 3 copies of Intimidation. This is a Resonator heavy format. This is a 1-cost card with quick cast. It just costs a white, and it says prevent all damage that will be dealt by Resonators this turn. It's like a Matarasu's Foresight, if you remember that, the good old-fashioned fog, but, it just hits Resonators. So, yeah, you can't stop your opponent's J-Roller from dealing damage to you, but it's 1 mana. It's still going to stop a bunch of damage. And might just outright discourage them from attacking, who knows. Keep in mind, the goal of this is just to make your opponent's life miserable and stay alive until you can cobble together a win condition, which we will get to shortly. Next, we have 2 copies of Aphrodite, the 10th Olympian. She costs white and a blue for a 400 1000 resonator. She does have tails. That's very important to keep in mind. And I actually just realized the problem here. I can't do what I'm doing right now. I've got a card with tails in here, and I got a card with villains in this deck. I'm gonna have to how about that? How about that? Let's actually just go in here and do this thing now. Let's just take Aphrodite out of there. That's very unfortunate because I like her a lot. But we're gonna save that. Maybe. Yeah, okay. So we've saved that. We've taken Aphrodite out of the list. God, that hurts. I don't know why I didn't realize that beforehand. So she did have Tails. Of course, we can't play Tails cards and Villains cards in the same deck because, rules. Stupid, right? Anyway, there's another card in the list that is a little more impactful that will, let's just say we need it more than we need Aphrodite. So let's move on. With the lack of Aphrodite, we have 4 copies of Fiola, the Spirit of Oblivion. She costs 2 blue. She has quick cast. She's a 5/6. It says put target non-resonator spell on the bottom of its owner's deck. And you could remove her and your graveyard from the game to put 4 1/1 counters on a water J-Roller you control. So if at any point you flip Valentina, yeah, you can make her pretty beefy. But let's be realistic. You're probably never going to do that. Anyway, so Fiola is essentially a resonator form of the Final Breeze, but just for non-resonator spells. So you can put the additions back in the hand, you can put Regalia back in the hand, you can put Chance back in the hand. Anything that is not a resonator. Keep in mind you're playing her for 2 blue, or you can cheat her in with Valentina for 2 blue. So either way, you are able to pay the same amount of mana for her, no matter what, and you can get around stupid dirtily things like Farah's spell, because Valentina's ability is not a quick cast ability. It just happens to happen at quick cast speed. So yeah, Feel is very good. Now this is one of my favorite cards on the list right here, is Vela the Bewildering Mage. We're playing 4 copies of her. She costs double blue for a 600/600/5 heroes. She cannot be banished as a cost to play a spell or ability, so it's hard to get rid of her once you got her. You got to kill her the good old-fashioned way, block with her or attack into something. It's annoying, but that part's not very relevant. The part that's relevant is enter, switch control of this card, and target resonator your opponent controls. One of my favorite things is to play with other people's stuff. Like, hey, that's a real nice card you got there. Be a shame somebody took it from you. So yeah, your opponent drops down. Let's say your opponent drops down a Garion. Ooh, big, scary, fast boy. It says your opponent can't do things that they want to do because it costs 1 or less. Pay blue, put Vela into the board. Vela says, "Hi, Garion. Why don't you come over here and I'll go over there?" And then yes, bada bing, bada boom, you have a 15/15 swiftness precision flyer that hinders your opponent, and now they have this 6/6 that does nothing. Super fun. Yeah, so you can use her to take your opponent's big splashy win conditions or power plays, etc., etc. She doesn't affect J rulers in any way. The ordered resonators, whatever, you're stuck. You're going to have to look at those. But resonators, fair game. Take them when you need them. Cheat her in with Valentina at quick cast speed. They're probably going to see it coming, and they're going to try to play around it, but it's going to happen. Next, we have a very fun card. Fun is subjective, of course, but it's called Road to the Sacred Queen. We're playing 3 copies of this. It costs simply a white. Part of this card is irrelevant, and that would be the enter ability. We don't have a stranger deck. We don't care about that. The next part matters. Resonators entering the field under opponent's control enter the field rested. So, let's say I'm going first. Ooh, whew, man, I'm going first. My hand isn't that great. I only have a few 1-drops in the deck. Whew, how am I going to avoid getting OTK'd? Well, Road to the Sacred Queen has your back. For the low cost of that 1 white mana, you can just drop her down and sit back and relax, because no matter what your opponent does, they're going to have to waste mana to blow this up before they can hurt you. And odds are that's going to offset their combo, which is what you want. You want to watch them suffer. Next, we have 3 copies of the blue Lorite, sort of. It's not as good as Lorite. It's not as good as Feasting, nowhere near, but it's actually still very good. Blue quick cast for Keys' Call. 3 copies of this. Cancel target automatic ability of a Resonator and draw a card. That's pretty good. Draws a card. Yeah, so your opponent plays any Resonator. You're like, hey, that's really impactful. I don't like that. You pay that 1 blue mana, you get to stop it. Super good. Like, oh. Yeah. There's just a myriad of applications that this could be subjected to. So, 3 copies of this. Keep in mind, I am not a professional in no way, shape, or form. I just happen to like to talk to myself, and I'm glad you're listening. Next, we have 4 copies of the Phantasmal Mad Hatter. This is the win condition. Is it a good win condition? Debatable, but he's got some very important text on him that makes him worthwhile. He is a 7/7 for a white and a blue. He does have quick cast, so you can play him the good old-fashioned way, or you can cheat him in with Valentina because he's 2 cost or less. When he enters, he puts 2 1/1 counters on another fairy tale, so he can't buff himself. But if you play a second copy of him, the second copy of him can buff the first copy of him. Woo, we got a little bigger, whatever. He says this very important thing. J resonators your opponent controls cannot attack or block this card, meaning they must remove him the old-fashioned way with a kill spell or a bounce spell or an exile spell. They're going to have to get rid of him the hard way. So that's why he is our de facto win condition, is because we're just going to swing in with this guy every turn while hindering our opponent with all of our various other stupid, janky crap, and we're going to watch them suffer while they slowly take 700 damage over the course of approximately 6 turns, 7 turns, something like that, and they'll go down that way. It's a slow burn, that's for sure. He also has a God's Art, which is good. It's once per game, but you can bounce any 1 resonator to the top of, or to its owner's hand, and then exile their whole graveyard. So a little bit of grave hate, some bounce. It's pretty good. I like this card a lot. Next, now this card's a weird situation. This is a Chilena, the Sorceress of Sending Back, and Send Back at the same time. I'm a little unclear on the rulings with a lot of these alternative cards because I wasn't really playing as much during the pandemic when these came out, so I kind of lost touch. But she is collectively a 2-cost card, but Valentina cannot cheat her into the board because she is a chant. So that part's irrelevant. You can't cheat her in with Valentina, but she's still a 1-drop that you can play. In fact, I'm pretty sure she's the only resonator in the deck that can't be cheated in with Valentina. But when you play her, she bounces a resonator, and if anything else would bounce a resonator, it goes to the bottom of its owner's deck instead. This is in here for one reason. Send Back says return target addition resonator or regulator to its owner's hand. I don't like Shackles of Ice. I don't like the Great Wall of the 12 Sacred Knights. I don't like things that my opponents like to have, especially not with all the contract rulers starting out with their free edition. I'm like, okay, cool. How about you put that back in your hand and you pay for it like everyone else? So yeah, this is in here because it is good protection. It's not good protection. That's not the word I was looking for. It's good counteraction. Counteraction? Yeah, it's a word. Counteraction. You can counteract what your opponent is doing by putting it back in their hand and making them play it again. She bounces resonators. Send back bounces pretty much anything that's not a magic stone. So yeah, 4 copies of this. And this is the reason that I took Aphrodite out of the list. We're playing Intimidation. That negates the damage on, resonators for the turn. But Fenrir is a 6/8 2-drop that you can cheat in with Valentina or you can play in the old-fashioned way. He has villains. That's why we had to take Aphrodite out. And when he enters the field, J resonators your opponent controls gain minus 1,000 attack until end of turn. It won't kill him, but they're not going to hurt you this turn. And then when he dies, you get to draw a card. So he's accomplishing about the same thing Aphrodite was accomplishing in my mind. But yeah, Fenrir is, he makes up for the fact that Intimidation only hits resonators because he also minuses the J rulers. And that's a blanket. So anything they play after the fact, it's also going to be like that. They're going to have that slight debuff, and you're going to be safe to sit back and laugh. Last but not least, we have a good old card. And when I say good, I don't mean good. This card was not good then, and it's probably not good now, but I like it because I'm a sadist. 1 mana for 2 copies of Invasion Ship Golden Hind. It's an old edition field. So you can choose not to recover it during your recovery phase. And you can tap it and pay 1 and a blue to rest target resonator, and it does not recover during the recovery phase as long as this card is in the field. Or as long as this card is rested, I should say. So, by this logic, let's say you've got Road to the Sacred Queen out. All their stuff's going to be rested already when it enters. You drop down a Golden Hind, pay 2, rest it, target that rested resonator. Cool. Guess what? It can't recover now. And then next turn, when it comes to your recovery phase, you let it recover. You rest down another one of their guys. So you're going to be doing this every turn, slowly locking down their board. It's just one more thing for your opponent to have to worry about. For our stones, we are playing 4 of the brand new, very good Water Moon fragment. It costs white. It makes white or blue, and when it enters the field, you get to 4C1. So you look at the top card and you decide, do I like this or not? Yes? Okay, put it on the top. No? Okay, put it on the bottom. Playing 4 copies of this. We're also playing 4 copies of the good old-fashioned Magic Stone of Light Vapors. Simply makes white or blue. Very good card. And then lastly, the Magic Stone of the Dragonoids. That whole first part, it says, hey, are you Millium? The answer to the question is no. No, we are not. We are not Millium. So we have to pay 300 life for this comes in rested. 300 life. That's fine. Let's pay the 300. Be a man. It makes white or blue, and then the last half of that is completely irrelevant. All right, now we're going to move down to the side deck. This is what I was talking about earlier when we said we had the Mechanical Engineer Ma'at reveal a machine you own from outside the game, keep it revealed. This is what we're going to be revealing. We can reveal Drywing, the Mechanized Wind of Destruction, which says recover all magic stones you control, rest all magic stones your opponent controls. That's its enter the field ability. We're never going to have that actually happen because, well, we're not playing green. But you can add it to your hand if need be. We got 3 copies of this guy because when it becomes revealed from outside the game, such as from the engineer, you get to recover a magic stone you control, and your opponent cannot produce will from anything other than a magic stone. That means no moon children, no regalia, no random additions that tap for mana, etc., etc. It's all incredibly annoying. Drywing is super good. Next, we also have 3 copies of Terminator Drone. This is another machine that's good to reveal outside the game because when it becomes revealed outside the game, target J/Resonator cannot attack or block, and it cannot activate its abilities until the end of the turn. that's good enough on its own. It's like a very, very temporary lockdown. But if you do decide to put this one in your hand, it does some stuff. It does some stuff. It's got quick cast. You can play it for the 1 mana, or you can cheat it in with Valentina if you're trying to get around a counter spell. When it enters, it draws you a card, and when it dies, you get to put a resonator your opponent controls on the bottom of their deck. So it's pretty decent. We're also playing 3 copies of Lightning Cave in the sideboard. I've seen some shenanigans with Fish Drive and Olivia and Sprinting Steward and lots of very fast fishies. That scares me. That's why we're playing Road to the Sacred Queen in the main deck. But in the event that we're playing against something that specifically revolves around swiftness and flying, we're just going to run Lightning Cave because it's just going to shut it down. Yeah, they might not come in rested anymore, but they're not going to be able to get around me, and they're not going to be able to swing the second they come out. So getting rid of flying is pretty good. It's pretty good. Getting rid of swiftness, also very good. The other 2 abilities, largely irrelevant. Ignore them. The weather is whatever you want it to be. All you have to do is believe. And playing 3 copies of the new, very, very fair Law of Silence. I mean, Atomic Turbulence. I mean, Dance of Spirit. I mean, Angelic Battle Barrier. That's what we're playing. The new, very, very fun card that says your opponent can't play spells. It means no resonators, no chants, no additions, no regalia. They can't play anything. You do not play the game. It's in the sideboard because, well, I'm going to be honest. Don't really need it in the main deck. But maybe you encounter a deck that's a little bit too out there, a little too combo heavy, it's a little too fast for you. You slap these bad boys in the main deck, and guess what? Your opponent plays more than 2 spells this turn. You slap this down on the table, you just windmill slam it down on the table. Guess what? Your opponent can't play any more spells for the turn. Just shut down their combo immediately, you're safe. And if you control the ruler under contract, it does something else. Of course, we're never going to have that because we're playing Valentina, man. Playing Valentina. And lastly, we're playing 3 copies of the best card in New Frontiers, Wanderer, I guess. Now we're playing 3 copies of the best card in Wanderer, Falling into the Cracks of Time. It has been a hot minute since I've seen anybody play any resonators that cost more than like 2 or 3 mana. There's been a lot of 1 drops and a lot of 0 drops. Thank you, Prototype Magi Trooper. This card just says if a resonator with total cost 1 or less would enter the field this turn, put it on the bottom of its owner's deck instead. Just get that out of here. I don't want that. Nobody wants that. And it's a blanket. It hits everything. Your stuff too, so be careful. Don't be trying to do anything fancy on the turn that you play Falling into the Cracks of Time. And lastly, it also does the other very neat thing where you can just unorder your opponent's ruler. Like, oh, hey, cool. You just spent the coin to order something on your ruler. Neat. Boop, put it back. And now they have to tap their ruler to call a stone. And it prevents them from doing anything stupid on your turn. So, you know, you get rid of the like, oh, ooh, that's neat. Zeus ordered the essence of Nyarlathotep's power. Cool. How about put it back in response to the enter triggers? Now, when the token would be unordered at the end of the turn, your ruler is going to be tapped, and you're not able to do it again during my turn. It helps mitigate the fact that they're able to order and then unorder and then order and then unorder and then order and then unorder and keeping it on their own terms. You choose it. So that makes it a little more optimal. Yeah, they're still going to get to do it again, whatever. But it could also just turning off revolution abilities. Sometimes it matters, man. Sometimes it matters. So yeah, this has been my take on a new age Wanderer Valentina, the Princess of Love list. And in my mind, this deck is simply stunning. So if you stuck around through the whole thing, you listen to me ramble and talk about cards that you've never seen before or don't care about, thank you. You matter. Thank you for listening to me. Otherwise, Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. You missed out. This list is fun. I like watching other people not have fun. Gives me joy. Anyway, uh, once again, one more time. Shameless plug. Not a part of Ruler School, but sign up for their tournament, the Force of Will Festival, November 5th and 6th in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I hope to see you there. Till next time, y'all have a good one. Pearlshine out.